They say snow makes everything quieter. But that morning, all I could hear was the rattling breath of my grandmother from the bedroom next to ours, thin, wheezy, like a saw dragging across soft wood. The heat was on full blast, but her cough still echoed through the drywall. Every time she cleared her throat or groaned, I jerked upright from sleep. I couldn't even tell you the last time I'd gotten a full night's rest. My name's Jake, by the way. 32 years old. Ordinary guy. Born and raised in Missouri. Roofing business. Wife named Laurel. No kids yet, just plans that keep getting shoved into next year. We had a dog for a while, but it died last spring. Everything in our life sort of started to decay after that. Grandma moved in 6 months ago. Lung cancer, stage 4. The kind that doctors say is too late to treat but too early to bury. She doesn't want to die in a hospital. My mom, her daughter, couldn't take her. My brother lives in Arizona and hasn't visited once. So, it's been on me. I love her. Of course I do. But when you bathe a person who used to tuck you in, it starts to wear something out in you. I'd come home after 10 hours on rooftops, stinking of tar and fiberglass, only to change adult diapers and wipe food from her lips. Laurel helped for a while. Then she started pulling away. Said she'd needed space from the smell of dying. I told her death has a smell, and it's something you grow used to. She didn't like that answer. That night, snow slammed into the windows like fists. Thick and sideways. Blizzard level. The kind that makes news anchors talk about whiteouts and tell folks to stay inside. But I couldn't. I just couldn't stay in that house one more hour with the sounds of sickness crawling through the walls. I told Laurel I was going out for smokes. I don't even smoke. She just looked up from her phone and said, "Be careful." That was it. The only bar still open was Murphy's, a greasy little box tucked between a closed-down laundromat and a Vietnamese place that hadn't lit its sign in weeks. The parking lot was iced over and empty, which suited me just fine. Inside, it smelled like spilled beer, old men, and loneliness. I ordered a Jack and Coke. Then another. The jukebox was playing something slow and twangy, and I stared at my reflection in the bar mirror until I hated it. I looked tired. More than that, used up. Then I felt a presence beside me. Not loud. Just there. A guy with a long face, long fingers, long hair. Wearing a black pea coat and jeans that looked older than me. He didn't speak at first. Just nodded at my glass like he recognized something in it. "You look like a man with a long winter," he said. I didn't answer right away. Something about his tone made me pause, like he knew I wouldn't laugh if he got serious. "It's my grandmother," I finally said, surprising myself. "She's sick. Living with us. Real bad." He looked down at the bar and traced a water ring with his finger. "That's heavy," he said. "She coughs all night. Needs help all day. My wife's checked out. I work 12-hour shifts, and she. I don't know. I just needed one damn night away." He nodded. "I understand that more than you think." I don't know how much time passed. We drank. Talked a little. Mostly silence. It wasn't uncomfortable. Just heavy. Then he offered something I didn't expect. "I used to be a hospice nurse. Got laid off during COVID. If you ever need help watching your grandma while you work, I could stop by. I've done that kind of care before." I must have stared at him for a full minute, trying to decide if he was serious or just another drunk with a good story. The words "hospice nurse" felt strange coming from someone in a pea coat at a dive bar during a blizzard, but he didn't flinch or laugh. He just sipped his drink and waited for me to say something. "What's your name?" I asked finally. "Call me Ray," he said. I nodded. "Jake." He extended a hand, and I shook it. His grip was dry and firm, not what I expected. Something about the guy unsettled me a little, but I was too tired to care. Honestly, I think I would have trusted anyone who didn't smell like bleach and Vicks VapoRub. "I'll think about it," I said. "It's not easy having a stranger in your house." "Understandable," Ray said. "But sometimes it takes a stranger to notice what the people around you won't." That line stuck with me for some reason. We had a few more drinks, but he didn't push. Eventually, I bundled up and drove back through the storm, the truck slipping a little on the way up our driveway. Laurel was curled up on the couch with a blanket and a glass of wine, her legs stretched out like she hadn't moved since I left. "Did you get your smokes?" she asked without looking up. "No," I said, hanging up my coat. "The machine was busted." She didn't respond. Just kept scrolling through her phone, the blue glow lighting up her face. In the bedroom, I could hear Grandma coughing again, her breath rattling like dice in a metal cup. I turned up the thermostat and went to check on her. She was half asleep, mumbling something under her breath about a radio and a white dog. I tucked the blankets around her and whispered that everything was okay, even though it wasn't. The next morning, Laurel didn't get up when I left for work. At the job site, my head was foggy. I couldn't shake Ray's offer. It felt like some kind of sign, or maybe just the universe finally giving me a break, even if it came in the shape of a guy who looked like a Civil War ghost. I called Laurel on my lunch break and asked what she thought about letting someone help with Grandma. She didn't even hesitate. "If it means I don't have to change another adult diaper, I'm in," she said. Ray showed up the next morning. He was early, standing on the porch in that same coat, holding a thermos of coffee and a grocery bag with magazines and puzzle books. He smiled like he was ready to meet an old friend. Laurel answered the door in her robe and slippers, her hair in a loose bun. She looked him over once, slowly. I noticed that. "Come in," she said. I introduced him to Grandma. She squinted at him from her pillows and muttered, "You look like my cousin Lee." He was no good. Ray smiled and said, "Then I'll try to be better." That made her laugh. A dry, paper-thin sound. But it was the first time I'd heard her laugh in weeks. I left them there, Ray pulling up a chair beside her and chatting about a TV show they both liked. I hadn't even known she watched anything besides the news. Over the next few days, Ray started coming every morning. He'd sit with her while I was at work. Make her soup. Do laundry. Bring crossword puzzles and talk about old movies. Laurel, who used to vanish into our bedroom to avoid Grandma, suddenly started hanging around more when he was there. She'd wear those thin leggings that weren't quite pants, and little tops with wide necklines. I noticed. So did he. I told myself I was imagining things. One evening, I came home and found them laughing in the kitchen, Laurel and Ray, standing close, her hand resting lightly on the counter between them. My grandmother was asleep, snoring in the other room. They stopped when I walked in. Ray grabbed his coat and said, "She had a good day today. Her appetite's back." "Thanks," I said, trying to ignore the air in the room. It felt warmer than it should have. After he left, Laurel didn't say much. Just made pasta and drank more wine than usual. Then one night, everything changed. We were lying in bed, the TV flickering in the background. I was half asleep when Laurel rolled toward me, her eyes glossy from whatever she'd been sipping. "I want something different," she said. I blinked. "Like what?" "I want to feel what it's like to be loved by two men at the same time." I sat up, thinking I misheard. "What?" She put her hand on my chest. "I want you there. I want to feel that connection. You. And someone else. Watching me. Touching me. Then joining. Not a stranger. Someone we trust." My mouth went dry. Ray? She nodded. He understands me. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. You always say you'd do anything for me, she whispered. I didn't mean this, I said. But the truth was, I didn't leave the room. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stared at the ceiling, my heart cracking along the edges of my ribs. And maybe, somewhere deep in my brokenness, I thought saying yes would bring her closer again. That I'd get my wife back. Then came the final blow. A few days later, when we were alone, Laurel said it like it was nothing. Your grandmother, she told me something. When I helped her shower once. She said that if I'm still young, still in shape, I should enjoy myself. Wear stockings. A thong. Feel love from two men. She said it was the only real thing she regretted never trying. I didn't answer. I just walked out into the cold, stood barefoot in the snow, and let it bite into me until I couldn't feel anything at all. After Laurel said those words about my grandmother, I felt like something inside me dropped into a pit. The kind of pit that doesn't echo, it just swallows. I stood in the snow until my toes went numb. The street was empty. Just the soft hum of our porch light and the faint glow from the neighbor's Christmas decorations still clinging to life in January. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even think much. I just stood there. When I came back in, Laurel was still in the kitchen, finishing the last of her wine. She didn't ask me where I went. She didn't apologize. She looked calm. Too calm. I went straight to bed that night, and when I woke up, I went to work without saying goodbye. Ray was already there when I got home. He was sitting in the living room, legs crossed, talking softly to Grandma while Laurel cooked in the kitchen. My grandmother looked content. Her eyes fluttered closed like she was being read a bedtime story. For a second, I felt something like gratitude. Then it twisted inside me and became something darker. Laurel wore red lipstick that night. Not the cheap kind from the pharmacy, one of those heavy, expensive shades she used to wear when we were dating. Her hair was curled. I noticed. Ray looked up when I walked in. Hey, Jake, he said casually. She had a little trouble breathing this afternoon, but it passed. Thanks, I muttered, hanging up my coat. You can go now. He stood, gave a nod, and left like it was any other night. But it wasn't. That evening, Laurel pulled me aside in the hallway, her tone soft but unshaken. We need to talk about it. I already knew what she meant. She didn't need to say the words again. I just want you to understand, she went on, this isn't about not loving you. I do. I really do. But I feel alive when I talk to Ray. And this could be something that brings us closer. Closer. That word clanged around in my head like a wrench in a washing machine. I didn't answer. Just nodded once and walked into Grandma's room. She was awake, watching the ceiling. I sat beside her and didn't speak. After a while, she turned her head and looked at me with tired, watery eyes. Your wife, she's pretty, she rasped. I know. She's too young for this. Caretaking. It makes a woman feel old before her time. I didn't respond. Then she reached out, slow and trembling, and took my hand. Don't lose her. Even if you think you already have. I wanted to ask her what she told Laurel. I wanted to confront her, to shout, to demand why she would ever say something like that, about thongs and stockings and two men. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Because deep down, I already knew. She was trying to give Laurel something. Some twisted piece of freedom. Or maybe some dark honesty she'd never allowed herself. Maybe dying makes people say things they never said when they were afraid to lose their dignity. The next day, Laurel didn't wait. She told me Ray would be coming by that evening, not just for Grandma. But for her. For us. You can leave if you want, she said, voice calm. But I'd rather you stayed. That evening felt like the longest in my life. I sat in the den with the lights off, listening. Every floorboard creak, every soft laugh from the bedroom, they carved into me. I didn't look. I didn't speak. I just stared at the black screen of the television and waited until it was over. Ray left around midnight. He didn't say anything to me. Didn't even look in my direction. Laurel walked him to the door wearing only one of my shirts and nothing else. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, silhouetted by the hallway light, one of my flannel shirts draped over her body like a secret. I couldn't tell if she was proud or ashamed. Maybe both. Maybe neither. She spoke quietly. You stayed. I did. I'm glad. That was all. She walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water like it was just any other night. I still hadn't moved from the couch. I wasn't sure if I could. There are moments that split a person down the middle. I used to think they were loud, dramatic, shouting matches or slammed doors. But no. Sometimes they're quiet. Sometimes they wear your shirt and pour water while you sit dying on the inside. The next morning, everything was normal. I made coffee. She made toast. Grandma coughed herself awake around 9:30, and Ray arrived around 10, as if nothing had changed. He wore the same coat. Same shoes. Same crooked smile. I didn't speak to him, not even to say hello. But Laurel did. She smiled and brushed a bit of lint off his shoulder like they'd been married for 10 years. He glanced at me once, a flicker of something behind his eyes, pity, maybe? Or was it victory? That night, Laurel came to me in bed and curled up like nothing had happened. I was thinking, she whispered, about this weekend. Maybe we could, all go away somewhere. Rent a cabin or something. Just the three of us. It'd be good for Grandma to get out of the house one last time. She said that part like she was offering to take a dog to the lake before putting it down. I'm not going anywhere, I said. Not with him. She didn't respond right away. Then. You agreed. You said you wanted me to be happy. I turned to look at her. And are you? She stared at the ceiling for a while. I don't know yet. That was when something in me started to shift. I stopped trying to hold on to the version of her I used to love. I started looking at what she'd become, and more importantly, what she was becoming with Ray. There was something unspoken happening between the two of them, something layered and strange. Not just attraction. It was like, plotting. My grandmother noticed too. She called me into her room 2 nights later, her voice thinner than ever. That man, she whispered, he moves around this house like he owns it. I don't like the way he watches her when she isn't looking. I sat beside her, squeezed her cold hand. I don't either. She coughed, then leaned closer. Jake, she said, I don't remember everything I've said lately. I'm not all here anymore. But if I ever said something to her, anything that made her feel like what she's doing is okay, I'm sorry. I was trying to make her feel alive, not this. Her eyes welled up. I'm so sorry, baby. That was the first night I cried. Not because of Laurel. Not because of Ray. But because my grandmother, the woman who raised me after my dad bailed and my mom drank herself to sleep every night, was trying to take back something she didn't even remember saying. The next morning, Ray made Laurel breakfast. Waffles. Fresh strawberries. Powdered sugar. He was in my kitchen wearing my apron, humming some folk tune like he lived there. And she let him. She sat on the counter with her legs swinging like a teenager, wearing the same pair of thigh-high stockings I'd found once in the back of our drawer years ago, the ones I bought her on a whim, back when we still used to chase each other into bed and laugh until we forgot why we were mad. She'd never worn them for me. Only him. I walked out of the house without saying a word. At work, I cut myself twice on metal flashing. My hands were shaking all day. The guys on the crew didn't ask questions, they could see I wasn't there. By the time I got home, the snow had started falling again, softer this time. Ray's boots were by the door. Laurel met me in the hallway. She said something then, something I will never forget. "Jake, I need you to see this as a gift. A gift of love. I want you to feel everything. I want you to watch me feel before you join in. That's how we start over. That's how we become more." And I did. I stood in the corner of the bedroom and watched them. And when it was over, I said nothing. But I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed up in the den, staring at the wall, thinking about Ray's boots, and what I would do with them next. Because something inside me had gone very, very still. And still things, as I was starting to learn, don't stay still for long. Ray left after lunch. Said he had errands again, always errands, always vague. Laurel didn't look at me as he stepped out the door. She just rinsed her plate and hummed a song I didn't recognize, barefoot on the cold tile like she had no reason to feel shame. My grandmother had fallen asleep in her room, soft murmurs slipping from her lips as she dreamed whatever old dreams she still had. I stood at the window, watching the snow fall in thin white threads. The road was half buried, and the trees looked like someone had painted them in sugar. Beautiful, in a cruel kind of way. Laurel came up behind me. "I talked to Ray," she said. I didn't answer. "He's willing," she went on. "If you are." I turned slowly. "Willing for what?" She gave a small smile, as if I were being coy. "To try. To make this work. I know this isn't easy for you, Jake, but, you agreed before. You said you'd watch. That we could do it together." "No," I said. "You said that." I was in shock. "You didn't say no." "Well," I said flatly, "I'm saying it now." Laurel stepped closer, her voice soft but strange. "You don't have to be afraid. We're not replacing you. It's just a different kind of love." That word again, love. Bent, stretched, cheapened. "I don't want to see you with him," I said. "I don't even want him in this house." Her smile faded. "You're being childish." I laughed once, short, bitter. "Is that what this is to you? Me being selfish because I want my wife to stay my wife?" Laurel walked away. That night, I lay in bed wide awake while she snored lightly beside me. I stared at the ceiling and listened to the wind hammer the siding. The radiator clicked and hissed. The whole house breathed around me like it was alive, wheezing and creaking and holding secrets in its old, wooden bones. The next morning, Laurel was chipper. She even kissed my cheek when I left for work. Ray didn't come that day. Instead, she texted me around noon. "Booked us a cabin. 3 nights. Just us. And her, if she wants to come. Ray's in." I didn't reply. That night, she showed me the place on her phone, some rustic A-frame on the edge of a frozen lake. Cozy. Remote. Private. "He wants to do it right," she said. "To respect you." I stared at the photo, a single cabin in a sea of white. 2 twin beds. A little fireplace. A place where no one would hear anything if someone screamed. I don't know why, but something dark rose up in me. Not violence. Not even anger. Just silence. A slow, simmering kind of awareness. Like I had finally accepted I was no longer in control, not of Laurel, not of Ray, not of myself. But there was one thing left I could control. The next morning, before work, I sat with my grandmother. She was awake, sharper than usual. She looked at me with those fading blue eyes and said, "You have that look again." "What look?" The look your mother had before she put the car into a ditch. I didn't respond. Just held her hand. I won't be here forever, Jake, she said. But you will be. And when I'm gone, I want to know that you didn't let them burn this house down around you. I kissed her on the forehead and told her I'd handle it. When I walked back into the kitchen, Laurel was packing bags. Stockings. Lingerie. Silk robes. None of them had been worn for me. The cabin trip was 2 days away. And something in me finally clicked into place. Not rage. Not grief. A plan. The road out to the cabin was barely visible, hidden beneath crusted snow and tire tracks long frozen over. Laurel sat in the passenger seat, humming along to a song on the radio like this was some kind of honeymoon. Ray followed behind us in his beat-up red pickup, far enough back to give us space, like he was being respectful. Like a gentleman. My grandmother had refused to come. When Laurel asked if she wanted to spend the weekend with us out by the lake, Grandma said, "If I die here, at least I'll be warm." I didn't argue. I gave her a soft blanket, a bottle of ginger ale, and made sure the space heater in her room was working. I even kissed her on the forehead before we left. Something about that kiss felt final. The drive took 3 hours. We passed barns that leaned like they were tired of standing, and fields so white and endless it felt like we were driving straight into nothingness. When we arrived, the cabin looked smaller than it had in the photos. Almost like it was ashamed of itself. Laurel loved it. She ran inside, peeling off her coat like a child on Christmas morning. "There's even a loft," she shouted. Ray arrived a minute later, smiling like this was the start of some great adventure. He carried a black duffel bag and 2 bottles of wine under his arm. He didn't look at me when he walked in, he looked at her. The night fell early, like it always does in February. We sat in front of the fireplace, drinking wine and playing cards, the fire crackling in the stone hearth like it had a secret to tell. Eventually, Laurel leaned against Ray's shoulder and looked at me. "You ready?" I wasn't. But I nodded anyway. They stood up slowly, like actors waiting for their cue. Laurel took my hand, led me to the loft, and said, "Just watch, for now. We'll invite you in soon." It was like watching a scene from a movie I didn't want to see, but couldn't look away from. Her moan sounded foreign, detached from the woman I once kissed under the bleachers in high school. She moved like she had rehearsed this, every touch choreographed, every sigh perfectly timed. When she looked at me, when our eyes finally met, it wasn't with guilt. It was with invitation. But I didn't move. I didn't speak. I stood, walked down the stairs, and stepped outside into the freezing wind. I stared at the black trees. My breath curled in the dark like smoke from a chimney. Something inside me clicked. Or maybe it snapped. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the small silver key I'd brought with me, one I hadn't told Laurel about. The next part was quiet. Just a turn of the lock. A click. The sound of a handle sliding into place. When I went back inside, I sat in the armchair by the fire and waited. Waited for them to finish. Waited for the silence that would eventually fall. Waited for the moment they realized. They were locked in. The loft didn't have stairs. It had a ladder. And now, the ladder was gone, dragged into the snow and hidden beneath the woodpile out back. The window in the loft? Nailed shut. The old kind, where the frame swells in winter and the glass doesn't budge. I sat there, warming my hands. Eventually, I heard them call my name. "Jake?" I didn't answer. "Jake, come on. This isn't funny." Still, I said nothing. I listened to Ray curse. Listened to Laurel's voice shift from annoyance to concern. Then panic. The fire hissed low. My wine glass was empty. Their voices became desperate. And I, well, I just smiled. Not because I was cruel, but because they had no idea what I had planned next. And neither did I. Not yet. But it was going to be mine. Every minute of it. They didn't scream at first. There was confusion. Footsteps above my head. A few test calls, Jake? Like maybe I was in the bathroom or outside chopping wood. But as the minutes passed, and then the first hour, reality crept in. They were trapped. And I was no longer the man who folded himself into a corner and swallowed pain with apologies. I didn't respond. I sat beside the fire, feeding it slow-burning logs and sipping what was left of the second bottle of wine. Outside, the snow fell hard and steady, like the sky wanted to erase every trace of us from the earth. From above, Laurel's voice shifted. "What are you doing?" she shouted. I stood and walked to the base of the loft, looked up at the square of warm light spilling from it like a stage. Ray's silhouette moved behind her. Laurel knelt near the edge of the platform, staring down at me. "Bring the ladder back. This isn't right. You're scaring me." "You scared me too," I said calmly. "Back when you decided that marriage was some buffet table, and I was just one dish on the spread." Ray spoke for the first time. "All right, Jake, enough games. Get us down before someone gets hurt." I laughed, "Just once, just enough. You've already hurt someone. You just didn't stick around long enough to hear it." Their faces grew darker in the firelight. "I know you're angry," Laurel said, voice trembling. "But this isn't how we fix it." "Who said I wanted to fix it?" I said. I turned and walked outside again, slamming the door behind me. The snow was deeper now, nearly up to my knees. I grabbed more firewood from the pile and stood under the stars for a long time. The cabin behind me glowed like a lantern in a storm, a pretty light flickering in the wilderness. I thought about my grandmother. About the way she looked at me that last morning, about how she said, "Don't let them burn this house down around you." She hadn't just meant the house. She meant me. When I returned inside, I could hear Laurel crying. Not loudly, not theatrically, just that quiet, rhythmic kind of sob that people do when they realize they've crossed a line they can't uncross. I didn't speak to them the rest of the night. I laid a blanket on the couch and let the fire keep me company. In the morning, I made breakfast. Eggs. Bacon. Coffee. I sat and ate slowly, never once looking up at the loft. When I heard them stir above me, I finally said, "There's food. I'll put some on a plate and leave it halfway up the ladder, if I decide to bring it back inside." Ray growled something, probably a curse. Laurel stayed quiet. I placed the plate on the top rung of the ladder, then leaned it against the loft and stepped back. Ray reached it first, his hand grabbing it like a starving dog. He didn't say thank you. Laurel whispered, "I still love you, Jake." I stared at her. She was wearing the same robe she'd worn for him. Thin silk, half-tied, a parody of intimacy. She was cold, that much was clear. The loft was high up, and the warmth of the fireplace barely reached. "Then you shouldn't have killed me slowly while you smiled," I said. Laurel looked away. That night, I took the ladder back outside. I locked the door from the inside, sat by the fire again, and let the crackling wood speak the only truth left in the room. Let them feel what it's like to be unwanted. Unchosen. Trapped by someone else's desire. I didn't know how long I'd keep them up there. I didn't know how long I could. But for once, they were above me and still beneath me, no power, no control. Just cold, and silence, and shame. And I was finally warm. I didn't sleep much that night. Even with the fire warm and steady, even with the snow muffling the world outside, the silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Thick with everything unsaid. The floor above me creaked. I knew they were pacing again. Whispering. Plotting, probably. Laurel had always been good at twisting people toward what she wanted, and Ray was clearly the kind of man who liked being told what he wanted. I imagined her feeding him lines between her tears: he's unstable. He's dangerous. He wasn't always like this. I stood by the fire and stared into the flames like they could answer for me. Was I dangerous? I didn't touch them. I hadn't laid a finger on either of them. But there was something else I was beginning to notice in myself. Not rage. Not revenge. Control. And how easy it was to reclaim it when you finally stopped begging for crumbs. By morning, the blizzard had slowed to a soft drift. Sunlight pushed through the high windows and painted long gold lines across the rug. I made coffee. Poured it into a chipped mug with a pine tree on it. When I walked back inside from dumping the ashtray, I heard her voice again. Laurel. But this time, it wasn't crying. It was laughter. I froze in the entryway. Her laugh echoed down from the loft like a memory I didn't want anymore. Ray was laughing too. What's so funny? I asked aloud. Silence. Then Laurel called down, we were just remembering something. A road trip. I forgot I told you about it, Ray. My jaw clenched. They were making light of things. Normalizing. Nesting. That's when I realized, they thought I was bluffing. That I'd cool down eventually. That I'd crack, and we'd all hug and cry and go back to something worse than before. So I said, no breakfast today. What? You heard me, I said, walking to the base of the loft. You two want to laugh and tell stories? Good. Enjoy them hungry. Ray's tone changed. You're crossing a line, man. I stared up at the edge of the loft where their shadows moved in the firelight. You think I crossed the line just now? I said quietly. You crossed it in my house. My bed. With my wife. You two didn't just step over the line, you pissed on it. Silence again. Then Laurel's voice, soft and colder than the wind outside. I'm not scared of you, Jake. You don't need to be, I said. Fear was never what I wanted. I turned and left the cabin. I walked down to the lake, now frozen and silent, the kind of place that felt like time forgot. I stood there for a long time, just watching the horizon, letting the cold bite at my face. When I came back, the fire was low and their voices had grown quieter. We went another day like that, me downstairs, them upstairs. I made myself food. I left none for them. They called my name several times, more desperate with each one. I ignored them all. That night, just as I was about to shut off the lights, I heard Laurel cry again, but not like before. This wasn't guilt or pity. This was a cry of realization. And I knew the moment it happened, she finally believed me. Believed that I wasn't playing. Believed that this wasn't a phase or a tantrum. Believed I'd let the hunger and cold do what I couldn't bring myself to say. That night, I dreamed of my grandmother. In the dream, she was sitting at the kitchen table, wearing that old wool cardigan with the brass buttons. She looked up at me and said, "You don't win by becoming them, Jake." When I woke, the cabin was darker than usual. The fire had gone out. So had the laughter upstairs. But something else had taken its place. Whispers. Soft. Urgent. Frantic. And when I listened harder, I realized they weren't whispering to each other. They were whispering about me. The cabin grew quieter with each passing hour. On the third day, the food ran out, at least for them. I could hear them moving less. Talking less. Maybe sleeping to escape the feeling of emptiness in their guts. Maybe whispering plans to each other through cracked lips. I didn't care. At least, I told myself I didn't. I stoked the fire. I poured coffee. I read the old paperback I found in the drawer beneath the TV. Anything to keep my mind busy, to keep it from wandering back up there, up to the loft where my wife and the man who'd volunteered to help me were slowly being broken down. Sometime around dusk, I heard the soft creak of wood above me. Laurel called down. "Jake?" I didn't answer. She tried again, her voice thin. I wrote you something. If I slide it down in Ray's coat, can you read it?" I sighed. "Sure. Toss it." A moment later, something thudded to the floor, Ray's winter coat, bundled like a sack, with a crumpled envelope shoved into the inner pocket. I picked it up. Opened the envelope. Unfolded the page. Her handwriting was shaky. "Jake. If you're reading this, it means you haven't killed us, so thank you. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I want you to understand something. I didn't fall in love with Ray. I barely even liked him. It wasn't about him. It was about what I became. The version of myself I thought I was losing with you. I didn't know how to say that. So I did something unforgivable instead. What you did, trapping us here, it felt cruel at first. But now, I think I understand why. You weren't trying to punish us. You were showing us the truth, that actions have consequences. But there's something else you need to know. Something I've never told you. It wasn't me who first brought up two men. It wasn't your grandmother either. It was you." I stopped reading. I read the last line again. "It was you." I turned the letter over, searching for more. At the bottom, in smaller handwriting, she'd added, "Check under the floorboard. The one by the fire poker." Hands shaking, I knelt beside the hearth. The cabin was dead silent except for the wind outside and the faint shifting of Ray above me. I pried the floorboard loose. There was something there. A small wooden box, sealed with tape. I pulled it out and opened it slowly. Inside, a cassette recorder. An old one. With a note taped to it. "Play me." My fingers hovered over the buttons. I hesitated. Then I pressed play. The static hissed. Then I heard my voice. Not from last week. Not even from last year. It was me, drunk, laughing. Younger. No, seriously, my voice slurred. If Laurel ever gets bored, maybe I'd let her. Two guys. Just once. Long as I get to be there. You know. To watch first. Laughter. Mine. Who knows, my voice continued. Maybe I'd even join in after. Could be hot. Grandma used to say, stockings and thongs drive men wild. God, what a crazy old woman. Another voice chimed in, Laurel's. Soft. You're not serious. I am, I said, chuckling. I mean it. Someday. Click. Silence. I sat there for a long time. The fire snapped softly behind me. Suddenly, the letter, the fight, the fury, it all shifted. Tilted sideways. What if none of this started with Laurel? What if she'd just taken me at my word? What if this whole nightmare, the bar, Ray, the loft, the revenge, wasn't betrayal, but a wish fulfilled? I looked up toward the loft. They hadn't made a sound in over an hour. Not since the coat was thrown. My voice, echoing in my head, just once, to watch first. I stood. Walked to the wall. Tore down the coat hook. Behind it, another floorboard was slightly loose. I pried that one open too. Inside? Another tape. This one labeled, play after. I slid it in. Pressed play. It was Laurel again. But this time, she was laughing. I knew you'd find this, Jake. Eventually. Now you understand. You were never the victim. Just the author of your own undoing. And if you're hearing this, well, you finally joined us. Click. Then silence. Then, above me, the soft creak of the loft floorboards. Footsteps. 2 sets. Moving toward the ladder. That I never brought in. Except, now. It was leaning against the loft. Right where I swore I'd left it outside. And someone was coming down.